Morning, everyone. Tim Attia, the CEO and co-founder of Slice. Slice is early stage insurance and tech startup. We power on-demand insurance for ourselves and also for other insurers globally. Really excited to have such a strong panel today. One of the byproducts of the last few years is that startups like ourselves get to interact with really interesting senior people, and I think that's an important part of it. We talk a lot about the technology. For me, the biggest benefit personally has been the people I've been able to meet that I think 2 or 3 years ago we never had the opportunity to meet. I wouldn't be sitting on this panel 3 years ago. So I really appreciate it, and on behalf of the audience, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time and out of your very busy schedules to be here, and I know there's going to be a lot of sort of great questions. Before I get going, maybe I'll ask you guys to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your companies. I think your companies are all very well known, but there might be some people in the audience that are not as familiar with it, and maybe just a couple of things you're working on or what you're working on now that you think is innovative would be a good way to start.
Okay, I'm Bernie Hickman. I'm CEO of Legal & General Insurance, which is a life insurance division at Legal & General, which I'm sure you've heard of. We're a top 10 asset management company. We're kind of global leaders in pension risk transfer. This is the big insurance policy for DB firms. We're a massive property development company, big house builder, particularly here in the UK, and we do insurance as well. So we're not just an insurer. And so we've got a general insurance division, and then I run the global life insurance division, which is retail and group life insurance in both UK and the US. And also within my division, we've got a whole collection of FinTech businesses, mostly working in what we call our adjacent markets. So in the UK, it's particularly the housing mortgage market, where we've got multiple businesses, themselves market leaders, and in workplace benefits as well. And so, we've been digitally transforming in our insurance businesses for the last 20 years. We had an online apply for life insurance around the year 2000, which was probably slightly too early, because you remember what the noise your computer made when you went online in those days. But that's enabled us to become the market leader for the last 15 years in the retail life insurance space. And then more recently, we've been innovating more at the edges, investing in tech startups. One of the interesting things we've been doing in the workplace benefits market, we've invested in a company called Salary Finance, who are doing salary deducted loans and savings, and we're helping them scale up. And they've recently launched into the US as well. So we're on a really exciting journey with them, helping them, impressed by their energy and what they bring to their business. So it's a bit of introduction from me.
Thanks, Bernie. Sam?
Hi, I'm the tiddler on the panel. It's not working, is it? There you go, they switched the mic off. They knew what I was going to say. I'm the CEO and founder of Freedom Group, which consists of 3 businesses. The most well-known one is probably Pukka, which is a Gibraltar MGA. We've also got a business called Action, which is a claims management and control business. And just recently, we've launched our sort of direct-to-consumer proposition, which is Freedom Brokers. We're involved in quite a few new sort of tech propositions, but not as part of core of the business. And we were talking about this before. We're not a tech business. We keep getting described as an InsurTech. I got labelled that a while ago, but I'm not particularly technologically savvy, although we have a lot of people on the team that are. I think the thing for us is about being able to offer the people that are actually really good at this stuff the opportunity for them to get their products to market. And what I'm finding is that there's some great new tech startups that are really struggling with the industry. Not because it's not willing or it doesn't want to move in, but because of a lot of the legacy systems, attitudes, cultures, etc., that they're really struggling to get these products to launch. So we're working on a number of projects that are collaborative, joint projects, really trying to bridge that gap between the insurance industry and the new sort of digital opportunities. And the other thing that's really important to us is how do we do that and still have a lens on corporate social responsibility. Charities are a big part of the group in terms of the staff getting involved in volunteering projects and giving back money. And we're just trying to weave that into everything that we do and everything that we are, so that we're not just sort of saying that's who we are and what we do. It becomes part of the products, it becomes part of the staff culture, and kind of creates hopefully a business that me and the team can be proud of.
Yeah, we talked about how hard that is for a startup that's venture-backed to do anything like that, right?
Yeah. Well, we were laughing earlier because I've really struggled to get investment so that the group is self-funded. And I was saying I just recently lost an investor because he worked out how much money we were suggesting we should give away before we shared with the original shareholders. And yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah. And Neville?
Neville Koopowitz from Vitality in the UK. Vitality was born out of a startup in South Africa 25 years ago under the name of Discovery. And the model is very much based on what we term the shared value insurance model. And it's a very simple model where we believe that if we can incentivize our members to behave in a healthier way, they'll present less risk to us as an insurer, and we'll be able to share in that between giving the members more in terms of benefits, in terms of incentives. We as an insurer will benefit from the actuarial surpluses that emanate out of that, and society is also the beneficiary. So we very much are a behavioural-based insurance business in the UK, in health insurance, in life insurance, and recently gone into investments.
Thanks, Neville. Pravina?
Morning, everyone. So Pravina Ladva, Chief Technology and Operations Officer for Life Capital, which is a division within Swiss Re. We have the unique opportunity to really look at a business model which is B2B2C, where what we're doing is using technology to close a protection gap. So really our big effort is around how do we digitize the experience to provide low cost, value for money insurance products, which is customer and consumer focused, covering lots of different types of risks. And I guess the really fascinating thing about the role that we do and that the teams do is, and it would be music to most of your ears, is we have no legacy. So we are actually building startups and providing a partner-based business. So really for us, technology is not, we don't want technology because it's fantastic. We want it because it can really help the end consumer and really help our partner base to grow their businesses, but really fulfill a need that exists in the market today that we think is under-catered for. So glad to be here.
And Pravina, what would be a B2B2C example?
I guess in the UK market, we can call it white label.
Okay.
So we have many brands that, you know, like if I give you a classic example, you could go into a retail website, you're applying for an insurance, and you believe that you're actually on the retailer's website, but actually the insurers behind that is Life Capital with some of our sub-brands.
Great, thanks. To set the stage, I'm just going to use a couple numbers. It's hard to get any, solid numbers in InsurTech, so I'm going to rely on the consultants because their numbers are solid. So the first one is McKinsey, of course. 40% of P&C and life insurers' expenses are locked up in the top 20 or 30 core end-to-end processes. Costs that digitization can reduce and in some cases eliminate. So that's the premise that 40% of the costs can be eliminated through digitization. The next one is, I'll go to Accenture. Digital disruption could cost reinsurers or insurers 40% of their revenue within the next 5 years. So one of them is around cost reductions, the other one's around shrinking the size of the market, or I guess losing the market. So with that as the backdrop, I thought I would put up the first survey question. So if I can get the survey question. Does everybody have the app downloaded and ready for a survey question? Try and get the audience involved. So if we can put up the first survey question.
Which is wait.
Okay, here we go. So are traditional insurers digitizing quickly enough? So if you could answer to that one, that would be great, and we can get a sense of the pulse of the audience up against the analyst statistics. Okay, well, I'm not sure if everybody's got the app downloaded. If we don't have the app downloaded, I think we're just going to move forward. Yeah, maybe raise a hand who has the app downloaded.
This is probably a little bit indicative.
Yes, yes. All right. Well, let's agree. Let's just assume that everybody strongly disagrees.
Here's where you go on the app. You go on the session,
Yeah.
and then down at the bottom.
Go on
there's a-
bottom. You can vote.
Yeah, bottom left button. There's a voting button there.
Bottom left. Go on the app. The session. Scroll to the bottom. This will definitely wake everybody up. Got it?
Got it.
Awesome. It'll be all set up for the follow-on sessions now.
You're a pioneer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Interesting.
So the question was, are traditional insurers digitizing quickly enough? So it looks like we'll let it populate a little bit more, but it looks between strongly agree and disagree. And again, I set it up with my statistics ahead of time anyways to influence the question. So moving into, the questions, I think I'll start with Sam. What issues are at the top of the agenda for CEOs and COOs of successful insurers, or what should be at the top of the agenda?
Oh, there's a question. I think, in reality, what's at the top of the agenda, and this will vary depending on whether you're a full insurer or a distributor, is, as a distributor, it's cash and capacity. Being bluntly honest, you're in a startup environment. Those are the things that you need. You need product to be able to write. You need cash to be able to fund it. But what should we be concerned about? Well, we should be concerned about the consumer journey. The question was, are we digitizing quickly enough? I don't think we can. The market everywhere else is moving so quickly, and the experiences that people are getting used to on a commonplace basis are so good. It's exciting in some senses. My banking app now is a revolution to me in terms of all the things that I can do and how much easier it is. And as an insurance industry, we are way behind on that. And this is what people want, and it's what people are going to demand. And sort of more scarily from an incumbent viewpoint, it's what new players will come in and offer as a matter of course, because they're not going to use any of the old technology. They're going to use everything that's available to them to be able to delight the consumers and offer them the experience that they are becoming used to as part of their day-to-day lives. For me, I think coupled with that, all businesses should be thinking about how they are affecting the communities and environments that they trade in. So I think insurance has this wonderful opportunity to really be a force for good. The whole concept of it in the first instance was that many people would come together to help that one vulnerable individual when an event occurred that they couldn't handle by themselves. And I think we as an industry and as leaders in the industry need to really get back to that and get back to the core of what's good about what we do and do it in a way that consumers actually want to engage with.
I guess the startups should start thinking the same way as well, or try to.
1,000%. It's not going to change unless we change the basis in which the game is played. And I think it's really, really important. And I think there's a lot of startups that want to do that. They really want to get the consumer engagement right, but they really want to do the right thing as well.
And Bernie, in the big, half-year, quarterly results, public company world, how does that hold up?
Yeah, we are very focused on being good in the long term for society, and being economically, socially useful is a big part of what we're trying to do as a group. So it chimes very well, and it's important when you're leading a group that you've got to be commercial, but at the same time, a lot of people motivated by the good things that you can do, and tapping into that sense of purpose is important too.
Yeah, and I guess, brand, right? It's very, very difficult for a startup to have a brand. It's very difficult to build a brand, and I think, I don't know what your thought on brand and time it takes to build a brand, and
brand is important, and brand's important in the digital world. What I would say is you can see that brands have been built really quickly, and different, the Ubers of this world have been able to get strangers to get in other strangers' cars. Airbnb's been able to get people to go and live in other people's spare rooms. So it's not impossible to build a brand quickly in today's digital world.
that's a good point. It's harder to storm the castle in insurance, though. But
Insurance is different, but it's yeah.
That makes sense. And Neville, what are your thoughts on what on the agenda of the CEO and COO? What we have missed? What should be on the agenda?
Well, I think the previous two spoke about being a force for social good. We see it slightly differently. I'm trying to get our business to see everything through the eyes of the customer, as opposed to through our eyes. We know that customers are far more discerning today about who they want to do business with, and that talks to companies that are doing good for society. But I think the big issues on our agenda is that the traditional sort of transactional insurer of just paying claims has to transform, and it's about customer engagement. I would argue, and we always talk about insurance companies, I think in the past, try to communicate as little as possible with their customers, because the only time that they could communicate or wanted to communicate was when something negative was happening, paying of a claim or a renewal notice. We have a very different view. We want to communicate with our customers all the time because we want them to engage in the product. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is the nature of risk is changing. We have seen and we understand that risk today is very much about behavior, insurance risks, and it can be modified. As opposed to in the traditional sense, it was a predetermined risk that was underwritten at a particular point in time and remained static for the duration of the policy. We think that we need to adapt to the way that people can change their behavior and incentivize them to change their behavior, because that has a dramatic impact on risk. And thirdly, technology is an enabler. And it's not, we see technology as helping us with those first two issues. And today, with the advent of technology, especially in our world of health and life insurance, technology plays a massive role in helping people measure and manage the way that they behave and how they can actually change that behavior. And that integration of technology into our core systems is absolutely critical. It's not easy to do. We don't always get it right. But when we do get it right, it's very, very powerful for our model.
So you think that insurance could be a good experience?
Absolutely. Well, I hope for those people who've actually experienced our products, it is about incentivizing people to live a healthier life, because we understand what the impact of that will be on our bottom line, and it will improve retention, it improves risk profits, and it's better for society. I would argue that even though that's a very difficult thing to measure, but healthier people, the spin-off for society is more productivity, less drain on resources on the NHS, etc.
So what are some of the things you're doing to nudge people?
Well, our whole Vitality program is based around nudging people. Firstly, people need to know their numbers, understand where they are in the journey, and then giving people access and information of how they can change their behaviors. And very importantly, giving them what we call intelligent incentives. the right nudges, because people won't change their behavior unless they effectively are bribed to do so. And I mean that in the most responsible way. But, you know, we've seen behavioral change taking place. We've seen a massive impact on our risk pool when people actually do change their behavior. So the model does work.
Interesting. So with all this talk about digitization and technology, I'm going to mix up the questions a bit, but how can where do people and diversity and workforce fall into? Digital assumes no people in the process, and by definition, computers can be biased, maybe even more biased than humans. And so, I mean, where does that fit into it? And Pravina, maybe I'll ask you to.
Yeah, no, certainly. So I think, so all the things we've spoken about, if I look at from an insurance industry perspective, a lot of this is common sense. And I'm new to the insurance industry, so I've been in there for 2 years. And my biggest insight is I've never met so many bright people in one place. So whether it's technology, customer experience, running the technology race about who can get there faster, everybody knows what they need to do. I think the real challenge is around the diversity and the focus of making it happen. So I think almost where the dial needs to turn for us in the industry is about acute execution focus and delivering on the things we know we need to do. And then if you look at that and you go, well, why isn't that happening? I think sometimes it is because of the lack of the diversity, the lack of focus sometimes, having multiple priorities, but not starting with the customer first. So I think it's about making sure that the customer or the partner that you're trying to serve is at the forefront of what you're trying to do. Then moving into working with people who are perhaps outside the industry and bringing an outside-in perspective, which plays the diversity point. And looking at, well, what have other industries done? They don't start the conversation with pricing, they start the conversation with experience. So how do we make that change? And it's moving away from a project mindset to a product mindset. So, you start with the idea, and the people who came up with the idea run all the way through it and run it as an experience once it's live, not run away and do the next thing. And all of that needs to be underpinned by working in the right way. And it does mean big organisational change. So breaking the silos, not being precious of whether you're marketing or product or tech. Ultimately, if a team is delivering an experience, they should be focused on that experience, not which department they come from. And if you think about what change that means for many of our organisations, that's sometimes turning the whole organisation on its head. So I think the hardest thing to do is the cultural change versus actually some of the easier things to do is implement the technology. So I think that's where the diversity and harnessing the InsurTechs really come into play, and learning to be that partner and learning to collaborate. I think that's a step change that's going to need to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to say, my biggest challenge is how do we harness technology, being data-driven, customer-centric, test and learn, all the kind of things that tech companies do. How do we harness that to deliver growth? And for me, it's all about people and culture. That is our biggest challenge. How do we get the right people in our organisation, organised in the right way, doing all the things that the best tech companies out there are doing? And I say that because I fundamentally believe we're in a kind of constant tech revolution where the winners are going to be the ones who do harness that technology and innovation. So for me, it's all been about the people and a culture transformation to become and emulate what a tech company does, and not just to do that at the edges, but to do it at every area in the organisation. So that's the people and culture challenge is for me the top of my list.
Yeah. So diving a little bit deeper on that one, because that's very difficult. I mean, insurance companies like to put out perfect products. Startups put out minimum viable products. How do you merge the different cultures of putting out the perfect product versus test and learn?
Yeah, so I'd say in in our insurance businesses, we're trying to do different things. We're already pretty digital. We've led the market in being digital, but there's so much further we need to go. And so it's about challenging every area of the business to understand where the cutting edge is in technology and how that needs to be applied. So we're not, it's all about learning. It's all about creating learning opportunities. That's what an MVP does. But if you get in, your actuaries to look at different sources of data and using different techniques, well, they're learning all the time. That is type of an MVP type of approach. So we do use the approach of MVP, and you can test and learn constantly, and it's all about the learning. I don't embrace failure. We're good enough at that already. I embrace learning. Sure. And making sure you set up these small experimentations, test and learn in every area. But, and so, I mean, we've been pursuing robotics and robotic process automation for last 5 years at least. And again, you could just do that incrementally in all areas of your business. It's all about spotting the opportunities, deploying the technology is the key area of focus. So there's loads of opportunities for test and learn. It's changing that culture mindset that it's not a big project that takes months and months and months. It's all about constant test and learn, 2 weekly sprints, and doing that across the business. That's the hard bit, but you can still replicate that. It's just in a different context, in my experience.
Maybe if I can just build on that. So, I do think, many organisations take different approaches. So they set up separate tech hubs that do all the cool stuff, and some build it within the house. The way we've done it is we firmly believe that it needs to be, tech doesn't need to be in a garage, it needs to be in the main house. Because ultimately you set up a different dynamic, and people always look at the cool people over there and they go, well, we can't do that because we've got all this rigor that we need to deal with. So ultimately, if we're going to drive that cultural change, it's about making technology in the main house to drive the business change for growth, but ultimately then making it safe for people. Because I think, ultimately it's about humans. And if you're suddenly asking somebody who's worked in 20 ways to do something in one particular way and then saying, well, tomorrow actually it's fine if we go 80-20, it's a big change curve.
But what if digitization means that jobs go away?
So I think this is quite a topical thing that we're discussing. And I think it's about doing something and learning from it. So if you implement something, we have done this quite recently, where actually the initial notion was, if we do this, that means it's going to reduce, 10 FTE. And actually what we did was redeploy that 10 FTE into different work that was more value adding and actually more rewarding for the colleagues, and making the teams part of the decision. So I think it's about removing the fear factor. And a lot of people believe the hype, and it's almost remove the hype, get on and do something and prove that it's not about reduction, about roles, it's about using that value created in a different way.
So moving to the question, sorry, did you have, Sam, something you want to say?
I was just going to say the thing that I find exciting about the technology, we always talk about removing jobs, but whilst people are doing a job that they do today, they can't think about something new. And technology can't ask a new question. It can do lots of stuff, but it can't conceptualize something new. So the thing for me is, if you embrace a technology and you make the boring jobs easier, then actually you're freeing up people to do the magic of being human, which is the art of imagining something that could be an even better experience for the consumer that hasn't ever existed before, like Uber or Airbnb.
I get. But we talked about 10x before, and I think but 10x could mean 10x less people, right? Yeah,
what we found is a really good learning point is when you're deploying robotics, don't get tech people doing it. The robotics is good enough these days that we have a team of ex-customer service people. Every single person deploying robotics in our customer service operation has fielded calls from customers. And so you get two benefits there in terms of it's not someone doing it to them. They are literally building it for themselves. We haven't seen 10x, but over the last 10 years, we've seen a 5x improvement in productivity. We haven't had to lose one job. We haven't had to recruit as many people, but we haven't, with natural attrition, we have not had to lose a single person. And it's been really empowering for the team because it's their own colleagues who have been building and constantly innovating with the processes to actually deliver that 5x improvement in productivity. And what you got left is, unfortunately, we've not had 5x on cost, because what's left is more interesting work, which you have to pay people a little bit more for, and so you've ended up with more interesting jobs. The mundane's gone away, and so it's been a positive experience for us, and that's what we're really looking to maintain.
So yeah, leading into another question on how do you build a leading insurance firm in the digital age, sort of hearing two things. One of them is bring it into the mothership and don't separate it and make sure you bring it together. And I guess the other approach is just build it outside. And I guess my question on that one is, if we were going to go to adjacent industries, I don't know a lot of them that digitize. Like if you're going to digitize the bookstore, you don't paint the walls a different color, right? You have a whole different business. So I guess, I don't know, starting with Neville, what are your thoughts on what's a strategy that if you're the CEO of an insurance company and you're staring at, you know, I need to go digital because of the things McKinsey said, or I'm worried about Amazon or whoever, what approach do you take?
Well, firstly, if you want to listen to consultants, be my guest. I'm just kidding. I think very importantly, you know, I think we've got to move away from, you know, having this mindset that we need to be digital because everybody else is doing it. I think it's an enabler. So it's once again putting the customer at the heart of what we do. And I would argue that everything in the organization changes, not just your digital strategy, your brand, your marketing, how you actually position yourself as a business. You know, a lot of insurance companies have positioned themselves over years as, you know, playing on the fear of loss. It should be turned around into something positive. How can you help your customers behave in a better way and become healthier, for example? So it really permeates right through the organization. And I want to agree around the issue that, you know, you shouldn't hide digital or, you know, showcase digital in a specific area where it's cool to be in the digital team and everybody else thinks that they've got to do the mundane work. I guess the big challenge for insurance companies with big client bases is how you integrate that digital experience into your legacy systems. And that's been, you know, that is a big challenge. And we're seeing that landscape moving very, very quickly. And I guess the best way is to put the teams together and they will sort it out. Because I think the days of having sort of, you know, black and white boundaries of, you know, who is in charge of what? Is it the chief digital officer? Is it the chief marketing officer? Is it the chief technology officer? Well, it's everybody. We can't compartmentalize things like we used to. And that's a real challenge in organizations because people are conditioned to think within their parameters. And getting them to transcend those is a big challenge for an insurance company, I believe.
No, it's a good point, because with the startups, we don't have silos and we don't have layers, and silos and layers slow you down. And I think trying to remove those is interesting. So moving to InsurTechs and startups, I guess there's a couple of different things. You know, how do you see them? How do you see working with them to move things forward? And I think the formal questions is, what ways can collaboration with InsurTechs be furthered for the benefit of the customer? And I think there's two different ways to look at it. I think, Sam, I'll start with you on how you think you could collaborate with the InsurTechs, and then I'd like to hear from you, Bernie, because I know you've worked with a number of them on, you know, what is the model here? What is the model with InsurTechs? I
mean, for me, we're really keen to partner with them. And it's not about ownership, it's about finding the solution to the problem. And I think that where it falls down sometimes is that challenge. You know, we talk about enterprise value, and the core mothership wants the enterprise value, and the InsurTech wants the enterprise value. And so you can fundamentally talk about a cultural clash. That's where it occurs. And I've had those debates with my team when we come across an InsurTech and it's a great proposition and it's, you know, it's clever and sexy and all that stuff. And they say, but, you know, effectively what's in it for us? Now, I genuinely believe that if you've got a partnership and you are both striving to solve a problem that the consumer has, and you're playing to your strengths and they're playing to their strengths, then the rest will take care of itself. So for me, it's a really simple equation. It's, does that organisation offer something that we can't do in-house? And, you know, if we're going to partner with them, then that will absolutely be the case. And does it take us a bit further forward in terms of that journey to be able to create a customer proposition and a business that's delivering the products that we need to be delivering? And I think the speed of change at the moment is something that we all need to be acutely aware of. You cannot build the full house, as you say, and then launch that full house into market. But because by the time you've launched it, it's already behind the curve. You have to be able to embrace these minimum viable propositions. Now, being from the insurance side as well, I understand the challenge of that. And we talked about, you know, insurance is a long game. It's a 20-year scenario. You've got to reach your loss ratios. You have to make sure that you're not putting products out that are fundamentally going to destroy your bottom line. But it's getting that balance between the two, and it's making sure that you've got enough of your experienced people in the room to make sure that you don't make a really stupid mistake, but that you allow the InsurTechs the flexibility to embrace their, their imagination and kind of really get you into those areas that you want to move forward with.
Yeah, no, it's about speed and scale, and insurance is difficult. So on your own, it's very hard to get speed and scale. And I don't, Bernie, working with InsurTechs, what value have you seen or what challenges have you seen?
Yes, I mean, I guess we work in probably, I mean, a lot of different ways, but as a strategic investor, you know, we work very closely with InsurTechs more at the edges in our adjacent markets. And then we work with tech companies delivering capabilities, whether that's robotics or AI or web chat and things like that, those components. So, you know, I think for me, it's about being really clear what you're trying to achieve, what outcomes you're trying to achieve. You know, one of the challenges is just there's so many innovative entrepreneurial businesses out there. It can get really confusing, and I get bombarded my inbox with all sorts of different tech companies wanting to kind of have a conversation with me, and I have to be really focused on what are the challenges I'm facing and how can a tech company help me meet those challenges. So, and that's what I encourage in the team is just be really clear what you want to do, and then go and find the best in market out there. If it's not open source, why not? If it's not in the cloud, why not? If you can't get open source software as a service, proprietary technology will be our last resort. We've had enough of proprietary technology being ripped off for too long over too many years, and it's not how a tech company would do it. So it's we're having to make sure we take the right approaches. You can get sucked into doing some pretty value-destroying things if you're not careful. And then with investing in startups, again, it's about being really clear what are our challenges and opportunities. I mean, increasingly, it's about harnessing technology and this customer-centric innovation, and it's more than the technology. I agree with Neville. Technology is the enabler, but it's the customer-centric innovation which has enabled the tech companies to do. Create whole new business models, and that's where I think the winning business models are. And so, very much, I want to badge myself as an insurance company. I want to be an innovative entrepreneurial tech company who also is really good at insurance and workplace benefits, housing, and increasing other markets. And so it's becoming much more customer centric. What do customers want to engage with? I have to face the reality in the pure life insurance part of my business. Not many customers like thinking about life insurance, so it's better to engage them with things they want to engage with and engage them in that way.
Yeah, that's striking fear through the core of InsurTechs when CEOs of large companies start talking about open source and like it's a good thing. But that they're tech companies, and I completely agree. We build it. Startup builds from the cloud down. We would never look at anything proprietary. We want to look under the hood the same way Airbnb looks under the hood, and so completely on side with that. But it's a big shift for the insurance industry to move in that direction. Have you had what kind of challenges have you seen to move in that type of direction?
It is, and I guess I'm fortunate working with an organisation that gets the bigger picture and where things are going. And I guess I could say, I've had an opportunity to win some arguments. We had our risk department put in all sorts of bureaucracy about moving things into the cloud, and you had to jump through all sorts of hoops. And saying, guys, you should be giving people a hard time not moving into the cloud. That's the biggest risk to our business, not moving into the cloud. So, and that's landed a few kind of thoughts, and we're gradually turning around. I've got our internal audit team actually looking at the projects that work well, rather than just looking at the ones that have gone badly wrong. And you can learn just as much from projects that go well as you can. So there's completely different ways of looking at things that I think you can get big organisations moving. It's not easy. Culture change is the most difficult thing, but you can get it moving in well, certainly in our organisation has been my experience.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think we do require a degree of honesty and say it is hard. To say to do this is easy, we'd be kidding ourselves. So I think so what is it that it requires to make it work? So InsurTechs are pivotal to our strategy and how we build our platforms, but it's got to be focused and it's got to be solving a challenge or a service or something that will help us grow faster than if we'd done it ourselves. So from that perspective, it is crucial. But then it becomes, so how do we do it? And I think the how is the critical part. So I think it's about understanding how that partnership works. For examples, I've had instances where the startup has come in and said, well, we want to use our state-of-the-art Apple Macs, and our control guys are going, you're never going to have those on our networks. Now, clearly, my job is in the middle saying, we have to do that because otherwise we're not going to move forward. So it's the little things that actually stop the progress. So you need to deal with those little things around understand that the insurance industry is a regulated environment, but if you have the right conversations, you can do things like put things in the cloud. You can use open source. And then on the flip side, from what we can learn from the startup business is the culture, the values, the speed, even the deepest techie won't talk about the tech. They'll talk about the business. So I think it's about that partnership and how we learn from each other to grow our businesses, because I think the future growth for us is definitely working with InsurTechs that help us solve some of our challenges.
So last question, off book, but would be timeline. What are your thoughts on innovation, impact of innovation? And I think there is a question around disruption. What timelines are we looking at?
I'd say we're in it now. If I look at from my perspective, it feels like a race.
How long before it will have an impact?
So I think it's having an impact now. It's slow, but I think if you look, you can still see the impact now. Unfortunately, I think it's still going to take time. I would say between now and 5 years will be my bet. But you can see the green shoots now.
So I would put it this way. Let's say at Vitality or Legal, Vitality is already kind of digital. So, you guys are all along the digital curve. But if you're not a digital insurer, how long before the CEO picks up the phone of the digital entity before they pick up the phone of the traditional entity?
Yeah, I think it's a constantly evolving.
Shifts.
Yeah.
Most of the premium shifts from current market to new market.
Yeah, I guess I don't see it, in that kind of dichotomy. Really, I guess it's been a gradually evolving thing. I think things are speeding up. I think it's clear if you're kind of in denial about the technology revolution that's going on and not thinking about how you engage customers and deliver amazing customer experiences through technology, you're quickly going to be left behind. I think it's already happening. It's it's been happening. I think it's happened faster in the UK than the US. I've got pretty good handle on the US. You're better at the US than the UK. We see the US as a huge opportunity because it seems 10 or 15 years behind in so many different areas. Although I think the US has a habit of catching up really quickly, so I think it's going to move faster in the US.
Not in financial services.
No, not in financial services, but I think it's got further to go in the US than it's been in the UK.
No, I think I agree with Bernie. I don't see it as, in black and white. You're going from, a product that's being sold now to some new revolutionary product. It's an evolution and it's an enabler. And it's how we engage with customers and how we use, new technologies to actually make our businesses more efficient, which is really a hygiene factor, and make it more engaging for our clients to actually engage in our products.
Your product is very innovative, but also has that curve. I mean, how it has an adoption curve. So what was your view on, over time, how many people would move to a newer model and how many people would buy into that model? Is that the innovation is done, but does that happen in a year, or does that happen in 10 years, or does that happen in 20 years?
No, I think it's certainly, you get your early adopters.
Yeah.
And then a lot of it, and especially in this world of social media, you get the ability to either scale quite quickly, or if you do things wrong, to actually have to deal with the negative impact of that. So I would say yes, from a growth perspective. From our perspective, we're still an insurance company. We still underwrite risk.
Sure.
We still have to hold a lot of capital. So it's not, we're not just an organization that's just out there marketing. So it does take time. You've got to, in a highly regulated environment, you've got to understand the issues that you're faced with. And we are an insurance business, but taking a much more proactive sort of stance on customer engagement, I would say, than a new startup that's got a different way of actually selling insurance.
Great. Sam, final word before we open up to questions?
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting for the Uber of insurance to hit, and I think it is coming in the next couple of years. And I think it will be a customer experience that potentially none of us have thought of yet. When I was over in Sydney recently, I met with a business that's doing Airbnb for cars. Now, that is a sexy proposition. Clients will love that. I think there's going to be something that comes out that the consumers go, I love this. This is not a version of insurance that I've ever known before. They're going to get wildly behind it. In reality, I think what's going to happen is one of the big players will buy whatever that entity is, and then that will be the torch paper for the rest of the industry, because it will be, if you can't offer this, you're dead in the water.
Great. Well, I thought maybe, so we're running out of time, that we'll open it up to questions. And before I open it up, I do have one question. I don't know how to find it on the app, but you can ask questions on the app. So we'll test that one out as well. But somebody figured it out. So the question is, how can we get more technical computer science expertise within insurance companies? It seems important if we see insurers as digital companies. And I'm going to caveat that a little bit. Obviously, the whole ML, AI, algorithm world is huge impact, potential impact for insurance. I don't see the talent going to insurance companies because even startups can't get the talent. So maybe caveat it with, shouldn't they be in insurance companies? And the next one is, why would they go to an insurance company? And who would?
Sorry. I actually disagree with that. I think we've got unbelievably talented people who come to us as an insurance company, and I'm sure, Bernie, you could probably echo that, because it's very, very diverse. I don't think you can box the sort of InsurTech or digital into one, you're out there in the garage.
Well, no, sorry, they won't come to InsurTechs either. They go to Amazon and they go to Google, and they don't come to us either. Sorry. I just want to caveat that. We're in insurance as well. We scare them as much as you guys do.
But I don't think we do scare them. I think the level of data, the level of analytics, the ability to actually innovate is incredibly powerful when you're doing it in a business that has got the resources to allow you to do it. And where it's the main core of the business. So,
well, you guys have the data, there's no doubt. But right now, and I think I was at the Microsoft events last night, but I think I heard the stat there that they're trying to hire like every graduate, right? We lost our head of data science, just flew to California and tripled his salary, and that was the end of that. So it's a real challenge because we're not seeing the talent.
So is it money, or is it that we're not appealing? So one of the things that I think insurance does really badly is you say you're at a party, and everybody always uses this anecdote, what do you do? I'm in insurance. Oh,
I was saying you're an actuary. That's even worse.
That's it. Everyone's out. They've left the building. So how do we rebrand the industry as something that these people will find appealing? And that's one thing that I spend an awful lot of time doing, is because I genuinely believe the next generation is interested in different things. And what we have to do is change how we appeal to those people. And some of it's money, yeah, but you know what? Boring jobs are boring jobs, and they can shoot off to Amazon or Microsoft, but they could still end up doing data into putting it in the corner. So then it's about the environment and the culture, and how can you create something that they want to be at.
Sure, people would be drawn to protection and how they could protect people.
Exactly, it's the emotional side.
It comes back to the social purpose again, and we are doing something great for customers, paying out literally billions in claims, and that's a good thing to be a part of. So, we have got great people, but we're always wanting more great people, and would agree it's hard. It's hard to do that, and we can always do more. I guess marketing ourselves as to who we are and what we do and what we stand for, what's the purpose that's driving our business and the good stuff that we do.
Great. Next question. How do you handle the regulatory burdens of insurance with the entrepreneurial spirit of InsurTechs? Not sure anybody who wants to take that.
I'll start because I have lots of fun doing this. So I think it starts with creating understanding, both within the organisations we work in and speaking to the regulators. People often fear regulators, but if we sit there, and I deal with a lot of them across Europe and in the UK, they have open forums, they're willing to learn, and you take them on a journey around what it means and what is it that's really frightening them, what are the core things that they think they're going to stop them. But ultimately, the regulators, especially the ones that deal with the UK, realise if a brand new company comes on the scene, they're not going to go and build a data centre. Why would they? So it's almost an unfair advantage to say someone new can go and do everything cool, and the people who've been around for years have to do things more traditionally. So I do think it starts with external conversations, education with the regulator. But internally, there's also a fear factor. And one of the things we've used is we've created the concept of control tribes. And a compliance person loves to be in a control tribe. But what it means is that all the control people are in the tent right at the beginning of an initiative. So they understand the risks and the challenges on a daily basis. And it becomes their role to solve those, not tell us no. Then they help us talk to regulators. But it does start with education and the fear of the unknown. And actually, I think the regulators, and we hold lots of round tables with them, actually want to help us get there faster as well.
Bernie?
Yeah. So, I think it comes back to the culture point again, and as Pravina is saying, it's turning around from you can't do that because into, well, how can we do that? What is the outcome we're trying to achieve here? We've had some great experiences actually in this very area where, we used to have a process where you're looking at all the customer target markets and you had to write this great long document thinking about every area. And literally it was taking us months. And it was taking us months. By the time we'd got it finished, the goalposts had moved and the regulation had moved on. And I said, this is just stupid. This is not actually adding any value. And so I challenged them to do it in a day. And so it's that changing thinking where you say, how could you do it? And that has completely changed how we go about these regulatory exercises.
Bringing them into the tech.
So yes, it is about adopting the sort of agile, Scrum-based approach. How would a tech startup do it? Well, they would get everyone together at the start in the room, and it's like, right, you're kind of not leaving until we've actually signed this document off. And so you don't have it pinging around from different departments as it used to be. You have it all inside and you get it done, and you get it done there and then. So it's driving that pace, demanding what seems the impossible to start off with, but now we're doing it in half a day. because we've got refined that whole approach. So we're finding there's always ways to do it. It's right, what are you trying to achieve, and then how do you innovate to actually achieve that outcome?
Sure. Neville?
No, I think just to further sort of endorse what Pravina was saying is, I've always found the regulators wanting to understand more about our business and about the different dynamics and the changing nature, as opposed to being a blockage. So from our perspective, you know, we need to work together to ensure that we can innovate, but at the same time understand the parameters, because it's also no good just to, you know, completely blue sky and not have any parameters to work around.
Bad things can happen, right?
Well, not bad things. I think you could just waste your time.
Well, if there were no regulators, I'm pretty sure some of the startups might do some bad things.
Yeah, no. No. I think the point I was making, that people can go off on a tangent.
Sure.
If they, you know.
They're not in the box.
But if you assume that the regulator's job is to protect customers, then for me, I kind of take it from a different perspective. When I've had bad compliance people, it's because they're trying to tick a box. And they lose sight of what we're trying to do here, which is protect the customers. So if you start from a position of, does this detrimentally affect the consumer, then actually it's not that hard.
Everybody's on the same page.
Everyone's on the same page. It's not that hard.
It's harder in the US. It's very much more rules-based in the US. They are trying to tick a box.
That one's, we'll do that one over pints. I think we're over time, so I'd like to thank our panelists. Really appreciate it. I could go on like for 2 days, but really appreciate it. That was fantastic. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.